Hello and welcome to today's Jumpstart. Today we're going to be taking a look at Azure Active Directory and building you some of the core skills that you're going to need in order to be able to put Azure Active Directory in place inside your organization. You might be asking yourself though, why would you want to put Azure Active Directory in place inside of your company? Well, coming up a little bit later on, we've got Brad Anderson, Corporate Vice President of Microsoft, actually our Corporate Vice President of Enterprise Client and Mobility. He's going to come in and explain to you guys exactly why we think it's such an important thing to get your Azure Active Directory core skills right up so that they're first class. However, before we go into that section with Brad, first off, I want to take you through something which we've never done before on the Microsoft Virtual Academy, which is a virtual instructor-led lab. So for the course of the next hour, I'm going to take you through actually running a lab environment which you guys can use at home. You'll find the details for how to do that inside of the show player that you're looking at right now, the place where you're watching me. And we're going to take a look at how we can actually go and deploy and synchronize Azure Active Directory with an existing on-premises directory. Once we've done that, we'll have a quick word with Brad, and then we'll have a look at deconstructing some of these core skills, really homing in on some of the things you really need to know. Okay, so let's start off by taking a look at the virtual instructor-led lab. So the very first thing that we're going to do inside of the lab environment is go to our sync machine, Contoso Sync. I'm going to open up Internet Explorer, and in the address bar I'm going to type in manage.windowsazure.com. I'm then going to enter the credentials that I've used to sign up for my Azure trial account. If you've got an existing Azure trial account, then you don't need to get a new one. You can just create a new Active Directory inside of your existing Azure subscription. So I'm just going to enter my username and password, and as you can see I've blurred the screen out so that you can't see which username and password I'm typing in. And the Microsoft Azure portal is starting to load up, and you'll see that I've actually got a few different directories inside here because this isn't the first time that I've used this subscription. I've used it for a few other things that I've done in the past. I'm going to go down to the New button at the bottom left hand corner of the screen, and then I'm going to go and select App Services, and I'm going to scroll down and select Active Directory. My next step then is to go and check the instructions, and I'm going to make a new directory. So I'll select Directory, and I'm going to do a custom create. So I'm going to create my own Active Directory. At this point I have some options. The first one is to create a new directory. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm then going to use a new name, so I'm going to create one, type that in. I need to create a domain name, a .onmicrosoft.com domain name. Now normally that would be the same as your company name, so I'm going to type in the name for this particular VLab, and then I'm going to select my current location, and we'll say complete. So now that we've created our first directory, let's go and have a quick look inside the directory itself just to see what's in there by default. So we'll go down and select from the bottom of the list our new directory that we just created. There we go. And now we'll go across to the users pivot to see the user accounts that are already existing inside of our brand new directory. And you can see there is one account sourced from a Microsoft account. It is the account that we used to sign up for the Azure tenant. So I'm now going to create a new administrative user. It's going to be called admin. So I'll just type in that and hit next. And I'm also going to type in admin and user as my first and last name, and admin as my display name. And we'll just change the role type to Global Administrator, meaning that it can do anything inside of this Azure Active Directory. And we're going to provide an alternative email address. My Microsoft one will do just fine. And then we'll hit Create to create a temporary password. Now one of the things that I'm doing is just making a very quick note of that temporary password on a piece of paper so that I don't lose it. You want to do exactly the same thing with your password as well. and then we'll go and hit the next, the complete button, and we'll continue. That's created our second account, and you can see that it was sourced from Windows Azure Active Directory. So let's go log in with this account. We need to go and change that password so that we aren't using a temporary password. So let's just go ahead and go manage windowsazure.com again, and this time I'll type in admin@vill2.microsoft.com. Don't mind you guys seeing that one, so I won't blur it, and we'll hit continue. And then I'll just type in the password that I created for this account. In fact, actually, sorry, not the password that I created, the password that I was given just a moment ago through the portal, the one that I wrote down. It's then going to say that we need to change it, so I'll re-enter the password that I was given and that I wrote down from the portal, and then I'm just going to enter a brand new password so that we can continue on through. Okay, that's then going to take me into a no subscriptions found option, because this account can't actually sign in and manage the Azure subscription itself. It can only manage accounts within the subscription. I'm now going to go to the C drive of the machine and into demo content and find the Azure Active Directory Connect tool. Now this Connect tool is going to allow me to synchronize my on-premises Active Directory up to my Azure Active Directory. I'll tick the agree to the license terms part here, having read them really thoroughly many times before, and then this particular tool is going to check the prerequisites, make sure that everything is needed on the machine, and then do the complete configuration. If you're running behind a little bit, don't worry, because we're going to have a chance in a couple of moments for you to catch up whilst we wait for the configuration to completely get set up. We'll hit the install button to make this start off, and we'll let the prerequisites go and do those installations. This will be pretty quick. I'm going to get hold of the sign-in assistant and also get hold of the Azure AD module for PowerShell. And now I'm going to enter my Azure Active Directory credentials. This is going to be the admin account that I just created, the admin app, for my case, vill2.microsoft.com, and I'll type in the password. And then when I hit next, we're going to go and check with our Azure Active Directory that those are the correct details. And very quickly that should come back and say, hey, this is all cool, it's going to work. Let's hope. Okay, and that's exactly what's happened. And at this stage, I'm going to hit the Use Express Settings option here in order to configure this setup. And the reason that I'm doing that is because I'm actually just going to take the out-of-the-box settings. If I hit Customize, there's a whole load of things I can do within the Azure Active Directory Connect tool. It'll allow me to set up Active Directory Federation services in just a few clicks inside of the configuration. It'll allow me to do a whole bunch of other things, and there's details on the website on TechNet for you to find out about those. Next, it wants me to enter the corporate credentials for the on-premises Active Directory, so we'll type those details in, corp/administrator, and the password of PASS30RD. Everything's done, so we're going to hit the install button, and now it's going to go ahead and do an installation. This is going to take a little bit of time for it to complete. So if you are actually sat there and you're waiting for your lab to run through, here's what I suggest you do. Go ahead and do this, get to this point, allow it to run, go away, grab yourself a nice cup of your favourite coffee or your favourite tea or your favourite beverage, and just sit down, relax, and surf the internet for a few minutes. Wait for your installation to complete inside of your lab environment. In my lab environment, this actually took quite a long time, so let's skip ahead to about 30 minutes into the video, and we'll then be able to see this process complete. Okay, I guess now is the time to say welcome back. We're about to at the stage where, hopefully in a couple of seconds time, my configuration will get to the completed stage and we can continue on with this instructor-led lab. And there we go, we can see that now the process is completed and our on-premises Active Directory has synchronized with Azure Active Directory. So now I'm going to exit the Azure Active Directory Connect wizard and I'm going to go back into my subscription and I'm going to confirm that my users have actually been synchronized from my on-premises Active Directory up into my cloud Azure Active Directory. I'll get rid of this in private window and go back in with a normal browser window. Here we go. So I'm going to go to manage.windowsazure.com. And I'm going to sign in here with my Azure trial subscription credentials, the ones that I used to sign up, probably a Microsoft account at this particular point in time. I'll enter my password when it asks me for that in just a second. And obviously I'm not going to let you guys see what my my username and password are, so I'll just type those details in and I'll hit sign in. Let's get rid of that little pop-up box, we don't need that to keep appearing. And we'll get rid of this next one as well. Okay, when this loads now, in the All Items view, I'm going to see my Azure Active Directory listed right down at the bottom of all of these things. It is the most recent thing that I created, so I'll just scroll this right down to the bottom. There we go, and we can see the directory that we created a little earlier on. Now, hopefully this time when I go to the users pivot, I should have, slightly more than just the 2 users that we created a little earlier on. So that's telling me that directory synchronization has started, it's worked, and all of that stuff is actually in place. Now I'm going to go and assign some licenses for my users. So I'll go and set up the trial for Azure Active Directory Premium. I'll click the Try Azure Active Directory Premium Now link, and I'll read all the details, the license agreements, and I'll click the Complete button. That's now setting up my trial. Okay, it should all be activated successfully. It is telling me that at the bottom. So I'm going to go and click the message to refresh. And we can see that we now have 100 active units, of which we haven't actually signed any yet. So we'll click on that link and we'll go and assign some users. So I'm going to hit the show drop down and turn on all users, and then I'll hit the checkbox to the right hand side to turn on that view. Then I can see all of the users inside of my account, and I want to assign a couple of licenses for AD. So I'm going to select Dan Park and hit assign. Just going to go ahead, do that. Then I'm going to select the Laurie Penor account, go ahead and assign that. And then I also want to assign an Azure Active Directory Premium license to my administrative account, the one that I'm using to view everything inside of the portal. So I'm going to assign that to my Simon May account as well. Once I've gone through that process, we'll go back to reports, and then we can see some of the things that we have inside of Azure Active Directory. And because I'm a premium user, I'm also seeing the premium reports. So this means that I can do things like understand where people are signing in from. I can get machine learning data on what kind of patterns people are using in order to sign in to their systems using Azure Active Directory. Kind of really rich information. I can also see information about provisioning for other user accounts inside of SaaS applications that are integrated, and we'll come onto that a little bit later on. And I can very quickly start to pull out audit reports and see when people are doing things that maybe I don't really want them to go and do. Okay, we're going to go down and have a look at our multi-factor authentication settings now that are back on the configure page. So inside of here, it's going to ask me to sign back in again. That's just because it's been a little time since I actually authenticated myself. So it's going to ask me to re-authenticate, and I'm going to use my admin at vill2.onmicrosoft.com account. You want to use the account that you created that's very similar. Here you can see some of the multi-factor authentication settings, but we're going to go straight to users. And inside of the Users tab, we're going to assign a couple of people to being required to use multi-factor authentication in order to actually use their device on in association with our Azure Active Directory. So let's go across to Users. And then, you know what, I'm going to focus on probably Dan Park and on Laurie Panur. And we're just going to hit the Enable option here on the quick steps. And then we're going to enable multi-factor authentication. And that's all there is to it. I don't need to send them out a special token. I don't need to do anything more complicated than this from an administrative point of view. I can just click one button and enable multi-factor authentication. However, let's go and take a look at exactly how this kind of feels for an end user. I just click the enable multi-factor auth button. And that's all set up. We'll hit close there. And then we're going to move down to one of our different machines. We're going to go across to BYOD. This is a computer which anybody could be using, and we're just going to go and open up Internet Explorer. Now we're going to go to myapps.microsoft.com, and myapps.microsoft.com is a special portal. We'll get to that a little bit later on inside of this instructor-led lab, but this portal allows us to see exactly what applications have been published to our users. I'm now going to log on as if I am Laurie. So I'll log on with Laurie, vill2.onmicrosoft.com, and I'm going to type in her password, which I happen to know it is password. It's in your lab guide, and we'll hit sign in. It's then going to say, hey, you need to set up your multi-factor authentication. So we'll hit set it up now. The very next thing that it's going to do is it's going to ask me for my mobile phone number, and I'm going to select the country that I'm in, and then I'm going to type in my phone number. But guys, I'm going to actually blur this one out again because I don't want to receive lots of calls and text messages from you. I'm going to hit the send me a code by text message option and hit contact me, and that's now just sending a text message to my phone. Hopefully in a couple of seconds time I'll receive that. And now that I've got that code, I can just begin to type it in. There we go. And I hit the verify option. We've now verified that my mobile phone belongs to me. That's great. And we're now getting this temporary app password, or rather app password. It's not so much temporary. This password is what I can use for applications that don't necessarily support multi-factor authentication. So email applications on mobile phones are a really great example of this. The inbuilt email application on an iOS device, for example, doesn't support multi-factor authentication. Okay, having made a note of that, I will hit the done button. Okay, that was a pretty long string to write down, so we'll hit done. And there we go, it's now going to log us in and sign us on to Azure Active Directory and onto the My Apps portal. And at this point you can see that I've got no applications actually published to myself. We're going to add those in a few moments time. Okay, let's just have a quick look at some of the things in here. We can see the groups. This allows me to do self-service group management. I just need to enable that for my Azure AD tenant, and that allows me to also have approved group management, and we can delegate responsibility for managing groups. You can also see that we can enable self-service password reset for anybody, and we can do that using the multi-factor authentication mechanism to verify that they exist. I'm going to go back to the sync server, and we'll go and turn off multi-factor authentication for this Laurie Panur account, because I'm going to use her another couple of times, and actually I don't want to keep receiving those text messages just for the purpose of going through this lab. So we know it's working. I'm now going to go and disable the connection, and now won't be required to do a multi-factor authentication in order to sign in. Okay, let's go have a look at the next thing we need to do. Come out of multi-factor authentication, and we'll go and have a look at applications. We're going to configure a couple of applications for single sign-on using our Azure Active Directory credentials, which are in fact, obviously, because of the synchronization, our on-premises credentials. I'll hit the Add button, and I'm going to add a new application from the gallery. This is kind of cool. Inside of the application gallery, we've got 2,400 plus applications that we have already got the information for in order to be able to set up a single sign-on authentication mechanism with those applications. I'm actually going to set this up using Twitter as the application, that we're going to be using in order to provide sign-on. So we'll say search for Twitter and hit complete. Now it's added the application, we just need to go and configure single sign-on. So we'll click the configure single sign-on button on this quick start wizard, and that's going to say, how do you want to set up single sign-on? We can use password single sign-on, which is essentially a password vaulting mechanism in order to access Twitter. I then go and assign the particular users who I want to have access to Twitter. So we'll find our account for Laurie just down here somewhere. Well, actually we'll use Dan as it says in the instructions. We'll first off say, yep, that's all good. One of the things that I can do here is I can actually enter the Twitter credentials on behalf of the user. So what I'm going to do is not select to do that, so my user will need to enter the details. But I could be in a situation where I actually want to issue those details, and I could issue the one set of details to many users. So we could have, for example, a corporate Twitter account, and we could have 5 or 6 users signing into the same account, never knowing the real password for the Twitter account. I'm going to go and set the same thing up for Laurie, and then having done that, we'll move across to Laurie's machine and just show you guys exactly what it looks like when we go and sign up for that application. Actually, you know what, now that we look at the instructions, that's not exactly what we're going to do. We're actually going to go and configure another type of application first. So I'm going to scroll back up here, and we'll go back to our applications view, and from here I'm going to go and connect to the configure tab of my directory. The reason I'm doing that, I'm just going to scroll down and turn on something called application proxy. This is a really cool feature. It actually means that we can kind of reverse proxy an on-premises application, but also do pre-authentication based on Azure Active Directory. So you can take something on-premises, in this case we're going to take an intranet site, publish it out securely to people who are connecting over the internet without having to redo any strange firewall rules. I'll download the connector software onto my sync server in this case, and we'll hit download, and then we'll just hit run here. You can see this is going to be a really complicated setup in order to completely configure this. So we'll hit run, I'll say yep, agree to the license terms, hit install, allow the user account control, and then it's just going to do the installation of the Azure AD application proxy connector. And now that that's completed, I'm going to sign in using my admin credentials again, so admin@vill2.onmicrosoft.com, and I'm going to type in my password. You're going to use, obviously, your credentials at that point, not my credentials. And we'll hit the sign in button, and then that's going to have completed the setup of the Azure AD application proxy connector. A couple of seconds later. Whoa, it's successful. Okay, we'll hit the close button, and I'm going to move back to my Azure Active Directory management console. There we go. And I'm just going to go back up into applications. I'm going to add another application, and this time I'm going to publish an application on our network, that lower option. Notice that that's only just turned on because we've enabled the Azure AD application proxy connector. So now we're going to type in a name for this application. You're going to type in Contoso Claims Aware Web App. It's going to check that you don't have any other applications with that name. And then we're going to say that we're going to use pre-authentication based on Azure Active Directory, and we're going to have to provide an internal URL for this website. You can only use this for publishing things that are published through HTTP or HTTPS. And you notice there that I just very quickly showed you that you can actually use pass-through authentication as well. So you don't have to authenticate with Azure Active Directory at the edge, but it's a really, really good idea to do so. Okay, so having done that, we've now set up two different types of applications. With this type, you'll see that it's exactly the same kind of thing that we're going to configure. We're going to need to, first go and enable the proxy, and then we need to provide the users who are going to be able to use it. Strangely enough, we're going to go and change the show options here to be all users, and we're going to provide this application to both Laurie and Dan, again, so that those guys have access to their on-premises intranet site wherever they are, anywhere in the world. And that's all going to be secured through Azure Active Directory. It's going to do the same thing for Laurie. Okay, great stuff. They're now all enabled. So now we're going to move across to one of our other machines. We're going to go back to Contoso BYOD so that we can make sure and show you guys exactly what this experience looks like when you're on the receiving end of it as an end user inside of the organization. Let me just read the notes here as to what we're doing in this next section, just to refresh my mind. We'll just go in here. Yeah, I'm just going to copy this this section here. So I'm just copying this so that I can use the external URL a little bit later on, and I'm going to paste it into my view here. It's going to show me that, hey, I can't have access to this application, and that's a really good thing. I just wanted to do that to prove to you that actually, as an administrative user that hasn't been granted access to the application, you're going to get no authorized access to the app. So it's just going to give you a nice simple error message like this, and there really isn't any way around it. I could try and go to a subsite, and it's not going to get me there. So let's go across to that BYOD machine, and now you're going to do this exactly as I am. You're going to go back to that machine. Obviously Laurie is still signed on. You go back to the applications tab, and you'll see that you get this message telling you that your apps have been updated. Click here to refresh, and when we do that, we get to see that the Contoso Claims Aware web app and Twitter are available for us, and we have a tile for each application. Okay, so let's go ahead and first off, let's go and try that Contoso Claims Aware web app. So I'll just go ahead and click on Contoso Claims Aware web app, and that's going to then start the connection for me, and it's going to take me straight to my on-premises provided intranet website. Pretty cool. It didn't even ask me to log on. That's because there's actually a single sign-on session in place inside of my browser, thanks to me already having signed into myapps.microsoft.com. So I've already been validated. But if the URL was just given out, was just placed on a public website, it would have prompted me to actually sign in with my Azure AD credentials. So that's really, really kind of cool. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and close down my screen here. I'm going to go and make sure that we go back to the Access panel. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and actually I'm going to open up Twitter and see what the connectivity is like to Twitter. You'll remember that we didn't actually type in any Twitter username or credentials here, so it is going to prompt me for that information. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Twitter. And then it's actually asking me to install a browser plugin, which is going to make single sign-on much easier for the user. So it's actually, I am the user in this case, it's asking me to make this installation happen. So we'll click on the Install Now button right in the middle of the screen. And then it's going to push down the MSI, so we'll just hit run. Once that MSI has run and it's installed itself, we'll say next on the Access Panel extension installation. So we're just going to go ahead, say next, then it's going to presumably prompt us for, user account control. We'll say yes to that, and once that's going back on, it's going to complete the installation. And we'll hit finish. So I'm going to reopen Internet Explorer for us, I think. So we'll hit finish. Yeah, there's Internet Explorer. It's now going to say you need to enable the plugin, so we'll hit that little enable button. And then let's go back to the My Apps portal, and we'll sign in to myapps.microsoft.com. Again, I'm going to do this as Laurie, and you're going to do exactly the same thing. You're going to sign in as Laurie. So, Laurie at vill2.onmicrosoft.com. And here we go, we'll go ahead and try and get into Twitter again. It's asking us for the plugin again. Okay, that's because we actually need to restart Internet Explorer in order for it to start that plugin. So I'll just go close Internet Explorer, open it again. Sorry about that. And we'll go back to myapps.microsoft.com. I'll sign back on again as Laurie at vill2.onmicrosoft.com. Type my password and hit sign in. There we go. And this time if I go to the Twitter, it's going to ask me to enter my account credentials. So this is pretty cool. This is going to allow the user to enter their account credentials the first time that they go and attempt to access the application. Once they've provided their credentials, they're never going to need to know those Twitter credentials again. And they'll only ever have to sign into Twitter by going to the myapps.microsoft.com portal, clicking on Twitter, and it'll take them directly into their Twitter. Of course, if you're setting up something like this for multiple people inside of the company, you're going to provide the credentials up front as part of the administrative experience, and then the user will never see this. They'll just click on the Twitter icon and they'll be taken straight to their application. Now you might be thinking, why did I pick Twitter? Well, it's not the best application, but it is nice and easy, nice and simple to set up, and you would quite probably be using something like Office 365, which is automatically configured if you have Office 365 inside of your Azure AD tenant, but you could be using any of the other 2,500, almost 1,000 applications that are available inside of the application gallery. Okay guys, hopefully you really enjoyed that. You had hands-on with Azure Active Directory and with synchronization services, just the start of building up some of those core skills. We're going to take a quick coffee break. I'm sure we could all use a break. You probably had a little bit of time during the course of the lab to go away and just grab yourself maybe a quick shot of espresso, but it's time to just take a little bit of a longer break, relax, and then when we come back, I'm going to be joined by Brad Anderson.